Hello. And always, I'm going to be checking the audio on this. So when somebody arrives, can you let me know how the audio is? And I know there's a little bit of a lag and delay. Okay. And we'll still give a couple moments for some people to arrive. Okay. And hey, Alan, nice to see you. So I let me know how the audio sounds, and then we can go ahead and get started. Audio is great. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So this is going to be our October Coffee of the Month stream as we're going to figure out the nominees for our October Coffee of the Month. And let's go ahead and start by going through which coffee I am drinking today. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right. And go. So let's go ahead and show what we're working with today. And it is a coffee from One Half. It is the Misty Mountain coffee. So it is a very expensive coffee. I was fortunate enough to get Airworks. So shout out to Airworks for giving me a sample of this coffee. It's a pretty high end coffee, and I'm looking forward to trying it for the first time. So we have it here today. Let me see if we can find it. I wonder, they should still have it. So we got Windy Ridge and we got Misty Mountain. So this is the coffee that we're going to be drinking with today's video. Sipping on H&S's Basha Bekele right now. That sounds really nice. H&S has been doing amazing work, so I'll be very curious to try that coffee as well. But yes, so this is the coffee that we're drinking, and we're gonna go ahead and get started now with some of the suggestions we have. But before we go through the Instagram suggestions, I'm going to respond to one comment that we got, which was about, it looks like we just got a comment on one of the Terraform coffees, but about steady state, as there were a couple of coffees that were suggested to us via comments. So I'm going to take a quick look through those. First up, we have Presta, which is the Koke Ethiopian. So let me go ahead and take a look at that one. Okay. And I've never actually had anything from Presta Coffee, but we'll take a look at what they're currently offering. Lumi Bolivia Natural is so amazing. I will somewhat spoil something. We do have one coffee from Luminous that we are going to be reviewing here in the near future. I really wanted that cupping spoon, so I'm actually going to be using that cupping spoon for future cuppings as well. So I'm very happy that I got an opportunity to pick that one up. But let's take a quick look at that Ethiopia. So it's this one right here. And we'll see how much it might go with some other suggestions and themes that we do have. Blueberry jam. So it's possible, as we'll kind of get into that when we discuss a different suggestion that we have. But this is the first one right here. I, once again, have never actually tried anything from Presta, so I'm not entirely sure how good they are, but hopefully one day here in the near future. Let's see what the other suggestion was from. This was from correction, Magnum XIPI, and they also suggested Steady States Campo Hermosa. So we'll take a quick look at that. And Steady State has been in a couple of our Coffee of the Month polls. They're yet to win one of them. They're also on our suggestion recommendation list. But this is the coffee right here. And I remember when this coffee was originally suggested, I kind of took a look at it and I said, this has got to be a pretty processed Colombian coffee, isn't it? And it's from Edwin Norena, which I was really hoping to get an opportunity to try his coffee from Resident yesterday. There was a coffee shop that had an Edwin Norena coffee, and I was disappointed I didn't get a chance to try it. But this is everything that I was expecting from a coffee like this: watermelon, Jolly Rancher, and Hubba Bubba. Interestingly, this might actually play somewhat well into our coffee of the month theme if we go with a specific theme. But yeah, that's interesting in itself. So those are a couple of the coffees. Let's go ahead and start with some of the comments that we've received from people on Coffee of the Month ideas and themes. Howie says, I broke the buy ban for those spoons. The ramen spoon is also interesting. I really wanted to get that one. I'm not sure if they still have it available if you purchased one of their coffees, but They had a Mejorado coffee. I think it was a lactic wash processed Mejorado coffee that I almost purchased just so I could get that ramen spoon as well. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at those Instagram comments here, and we will start with I think it was Zach and Greg were the first ones. So they said that I should let them pick the coffee of the month. Let me get that pulled up here. All right. So yeah, Zach says let Zach and Greg pick the nominees for the coffee of the month. So if Zach and Greg are in the stream right now, then they can go ahead and suggest some coffees. But I don't think Zach and Greg have ever participated in a stream. So Zach or Greg, if you're here, then go ahead and pick out the nominees. But something tells me that they're not. Okay. So no response from them. Let's go ahead and move on. And then the next comment we had was from Alan himself. And Alan said candy. And I really like that theme because we've had some similar suggestions from some other people. Obviously, since this is Halloween time for Halloween, then candy makes a lot of sense, and that's why this one actually makes sense because we do have some candy notes. So what I'm kind of thinking is we could do a Halloween theme with coffees that do have candy notes on them. So this one right here with Jolly Rancher and Hubba Bubba is an option. I once again have a pretty good idea of what this coffee is going to taste like, but given that it was suggested to us, this is a Edwin Norena coffee, so it's also going to be pretty interesting. This would be a coffee that we could go with for the coffee of the month to start with. So that in itself is kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and see what our next comment was. And the next one we had was from Francisco GTZ17. And Francisco suggested Thankfully's Pepe Jijon coffees. And I'm not sure if the new ones are out yet. Let's see here. Actually, Thankfully Coffee. And Thankfully did reach out to me about the Mejorado coffees that they are going to be releasing. And I do want to purchase those if I have an opportunity. I'm not sure if they're out yet. So they are not out yet. I feel like I would need to reach out to Thankfully once again and discuss with them about the release of the Mejorado and see if we could hold off the poll until they do release those Mejorado coffees. It's entirely possible that this comment is referencing the Cyoxy, the Sidra oxidator processed coffees. And I had an opportunity to try this coffee recently. It's actually going to be featured in a blind taste test that we have coming up tomorrow. I tried it this one as well as the one from Manhattan. So that is coming out tomorrow. It'll be kind of interesting to see how that goes, but yeah, we'll see. Howie says, make Julian do an all decaf month. And given the immense success of our last decaf month, I'm not entirely sure how well that one would go over, but I could subject myself to that. Probably would need a couple of coffees to supplement that as well. And John says Savage Coffee Roasters, St. Pete, Florida. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Savage has liked a lot of our Instagram posts, and I was always wondering whether or not they actually do have a roastery yet. I've had really good success with the Savage coffees this year, so it's entirely possible that we should go try one of those coffees from them. And then Katerina says, made mama proud from the Czech coffee roaster Cofio. The notes are pineapple, Earl Grey, watermelon, wine, pink grapefruit, tropical punch, and cider. That's a very intense sounding coffee, but I kind of want to take a look at that. We'll start with John's suggestion. Let's take a look at Savage Coffee Roasters because I've never actually had anything from them yet. As far as the thankfully suggestion goes, I am going to reach out to them once again and see if we can figure out what they when they're going to be releasing those coffees. I don't think that this is it. It doesn't look like it. It should be this one. Yes. And let's see what they've got in terms of whole beans. Okay. I wonder if we can just go all whole beans. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so they have Afterglow, Nirvana, a lot of what you'd expect. So these are obviously their more well-known coffees. You've got Iridescence, Deborah, and let's see, they've got a Katura. Okay, so they have some interesting coffees. I do wonder if we might be able to put this into our theme of candy flavored coffees because I'm sure that there's one that might have some sort of candy note. It's probably going to be one of their more processed coffees. So, John, is there one of these coffees that you can actually suggest either as just a suggestion in general or one that might happen to have one of those candy flavored notes? Because that would be pretty interesting. I can run through them real quick, but let's see what we've got. It's always interesting when a producer is releasing coffees too. I assume that this is, of course, from Savage themselves. Champagne, cream, moderate acidity. They have that chocolate on there. Yeah, I'm gonna run through these real quick. Cherry wine, peach tart, lychee, champagne, jasmine. My favorite of these is obviously the terroir, but we had such great success with the iridescence that I would be happy to go with the iridescence as well. Yeah, I imagine that the terroir is probably gonna be my favorite. Cane sugar, so that's kind of possible. All right, let's see here. Yes, Jamie Jr. met him in St. Pete. Yeah, let's take a look at that one then. And I'm actually not seeing it on the website unless I'm missing it right here. I would probably add something like this on there to a washed Katura. None of these necessarily have a candy note to them. I assume it would probably be one of the more processed coffees that they do have. I also kind of want to reach out to them in general because I'd be very curious to try their coffees and see what they might suggest as well. All right. Let's go ahead and so I'm going to keep these in mind. We have some options for right now. We're going to move on to the next suggestion, which comes from Simcosi. And Simcosi suggested quite a few, it looks like Slovakian based coffee roasters. And I've never had any Slovakian based coffee roasters, but they were recently featured in, I want to say, the Right Roasts subscription month, which was Slovakia. And I didn't have an opportunity to pick those up, mostly because the coffees didn't really sound like coffees that interested me. And we're going to take a quick look. So this one specifically, they suggested the Eduardo Ramirez. So we'll take a quick look at that one. And I remember taking a quick glance when this was originally suggested to me, but I kind of want to take one more look at it here. I think a lot of people know that I've never necessarily been the biggest fan of more processed Costa Rican coffees, most specifically Las Lajas. I really should have translated this page into English. But I know that this one's a Gesha, and the other one Costa Rican geisha that we've reviewed that was more processed was the Montero during the Cafe Box Advent calendar. So I didn't necessarily have the best success with that coffee, but this is an option. I really need to go back and actually translate this page into English. My Slovakian isn't necessarily the best, as in I know no Slovakian. All right. And let's see what they have listed on here. See if maybe we can pull up the notes. I can't really see this one. And it's still in Slovakian anyway. So that's the first one, and I would be open to trying it even if it isn't necessarily my own preference. Reminiscent of candy. You know what? There we go. We have a second candy note. So we can actually put this one in our coffee of the month poll. So we have two options currently. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. And they also suggested, let's see here, Ethiopian Shakisho from Diamond, which is another Slovakian-based coffee roaster. Slovakia. And Diamond's Roastery. I'm pretty sure that that one's got to be it. There we go. And it would be nice to include some European coffee roasters in the poll as well. I think we have recently, but the more we can include, I think the more people would be interested in participating too. Let's take a look at what they have for their filter offerings. And yeah, there's the Shakisho. Black tea, citrus, caramels. Caramel could be justified as candied. And we got a fair bit of funk factor. This one's just a washed, right? Yeah, it's a washed. So funk factor kind of interesting in that one. Really don't know anything about these Slovakian roasters, but we have 2 options currently if we're gonna go with that candy theme, so I think that these are the 2 that we're going to stick to for right now. Alright. Michael says, "Had a Rwanda from Presta a year or so back, it was pretty decent." And I can't recall whether or not I can actually take a quick look. Let's take a quick look and see. I can't remember if Presta's actually on our suggestion recommendation list. I don't think that they are, but I've heard a fair bit about Presta. I've seen them at a number of multi-roasters, and yeah, it doesn't look like they actually are on that suggestion recommendation list. So hopefully at some point we can visit one of their coffees. It would be great if they did have something candied to go in line with the other suggestions. All right, let's move on. Let's see here. Howie says, the one I put is a Colombian actually, even if it says that in the URL. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Well, let's go ahead and move on then. And what else do we have? Tim Wendelboe, his Achemo December 2023 harvest is delightful. All right, this gives us an opportunity to take a quick look at Tim Wendelboe. And a lot of the recent feedback I've heard from Tim Wendelboe has been actually pretty mixed. Some people were saying that the coffee is turning out a little bit more developed than they would expect, especially from Tim Wendelboe. And unfortunately, Tim Wendelboe is not going to be in the upcoming Cafe Box Advent calendar because I really wanted to revisit and try the coffees to see if that was the case. But we have reviewed a Chemo before, and that's kind of the only issue I have is this coffee is something that we do already have up currently, even if this one's a different year's harvest. I'm kind of wondering if they have another coffee though that we haven't reviewed. I've told people in the past before that the biggest issue with Tim Wendelboe for me is that they do use the same coffees year after year. So you don't see too many new coffees come out. And the vast majority of coffees that they do have are coffees that we've already reviewed. This one is the one I was looking for, actually. This one's new, and we have not reviewed this one. So this one is a Honduran Gesha. So if we could justify purchasing that at Chemo, then we could actually add this one on board as well, because I would be very interested to review this one. It sounds very much like a Tim Wendelboe coffee as well. So if anybody's tried out this Finca El Vikingo, then I'd be very curious to hear what people have thought about that one. I've heard zero feedback on that coffee up to this point. All right, let's see what we have next. And so we have it's October. So this is the comment I was actually looking at the most. So this is from Titus Daughtry, and he suggested Brandywine. And if there's an American coffee roaster that really screams Halloween theme, it's going to be Brandywine. So I have actually neglected to look at their website because I was very curious to see what sort of things they would have live in person. So I'm very curious. This is going to be kind of interesting. They have so many offerings. I wonder if that's changed, but we're gonna have to kinda go through these real quick. So we do have a co-fermented coffee and white chocolate, that is candied. So far, every coffee that I've found that has been with a candy theme has been pretty processed, but it would be interesting to revisit Brandywine. It's been a very long time since I've actually had any of Brandywine's coffees, and these are all Halloween themed too. So what do we have on this one? Not really seeing any oh, here we go. Hibiscus, kiwi, and lime. And let's see here. More Halloween themed stuff. So more scarcity to the scene. Creepy cacao. Like this one's kind of perfect. What is this coffee though? Oh, it's a okay. So this one's a blend, and I feel like that might appeal to some people as I've done a very poor job of reviewing any sort of blends. And then we have a bunch of other coffees. It doesn't look like anything else that is Halloween themed. So fewer Halloween themes than before. I remember when we first started reviewing coffees, we were doing the collaboration from Onyx and Brandywine, and I really wished that they would have continued that collaboration because it was kind of fun to go through that collaboration coffee. And maybe that's one of the reasons why we haven't revisited them that much because it was always a fun thing to do during Halloween. But between these 2 coffees, I feel like this one's the more interesting coffee, and I'm sure white chocolate probably sounds a little bit more interesting to people. It looks like this one's also a blend, though. So, if we're going with Brandywine, which if we're going with this coffee theme, then I think both of these are pretty good suggestions. I would like to hear from people which of these 2 coffees you would actually suggest, or which one would you be more interested in trying out? Alan says, "I hated Tim Wendelboe's Achema." Okay, that's kind of funny. I the review that we do have of that coffee was just kind of, mixed, and I was wondering if maybe a I imagined that future harvests of that coffee was going to turn out better. It doesn't sound like this year's was necessarily your own preference, but it's something that I would like at least a sample of, so that way I could figure it out for myself. And for anybody that's just joined, this is actually, Misty Mountain, so I'm gonna take another sip on Misty Mountain. And I finished recording our one half reviews pretty recently, and when those do, it's probably going to be a bit when those come out. As you guys might have seen, we released a review every single day this past week because I'm trying to catch up and get ahead on those reviews because we have once again a pretty stacked backlog. This upcoming week, I might do the same actually to kind of catch up because once again, I've recorded so many views in advance. And the one half reviews that we do have coming out, I want to say that they're mostly mixed. There are some copies from one half that I actually liked, but in general, I think a lot of people had pretty mixed reactions to the one half coffees, right? And then let's see here. Zhao Jin says Apollon's Gold recently had the Corpachi Pacamara. It tastes very sweet with tropical fruit notes. And we'll take a quick look at Apollon's Gold. That's another coffee roaster that I've heard a lot of mixed feedback on recently. Some people have said that they've pushed the development of their coffees a fair bit more than they would necessarily like. Yeah, we do have a lot of these Pepe coffees, and that was the main reason I was hesitant on purchasing this entire Pepe bundle because these coffees did sound pretty interesting to me. But it's entirely possible that we might be able to find another candied flavor note within this one. So, Amasho, we have lemon candy. So that right there is pretty straightforward and simple. That would already give us four potential coffees if we're going to go with this candied theme. Do we still have the Corpacci? I don't think that the Corpacci's still there. Oh, here we go. This is the Catura. I think it was a different one though. Yeah, the Pacamara. Oh, we do still have the Pacamara. There's still a little bit of it left. Still very clean. I can imagine. I've had positive results for the most part with their more processed coffees in terms of clarity, so I do think it's possible that they could have some nice cleanliness to them. Alan says, "Love how fun Brandywine is, but man, it is straight funk juice." And I feel like that would probably appeal to a lot of people. People really enjoy when we do review those extremely funky coffees. What's that other coffee that they had? A single origin. Yeah, I think this one was just a natural Rwandan. But again, it didn't really have anything exciting as far as the candied notes to them. This one was much more so. Well, actually, this one was the most candied. So I think that this one's probably going to be pretty heavy, especially with the notes that they have listed on here. But I think we're for sure we're gonna go with one of the Brandywine coffees. I think we're probably gonna go with this candied theme to kind of fulfill the Halloween theme for this month. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what else we have. So next up, we do have Derek saying specialty dark roasts, and I'd be curious from anybody in the comments to find out: are there any specialty coffee roasters that have dark roasts that you guys would like? I don't even really know where to start when it comes to specialty dark roasts. I was just kind of thinking about this, and what are some coffee roasters that do go pretty far on the spectrum in terms of what they do offer? I know Onyx does. I think does Onyx still have darker profiled coffee? Something that they would consider to be their darker roasts. If they did, then we could probably add that to the theme, especially if there's something candied. Not entirely sure what they would consider to be dark. Let's see here. Expressive dark. So yeah, their cold brew is listed as dark. Um, I think that's something that I would probably need to put on our Instagram and ask people if they have any suggestions or ideas as far as dark roasts go. We haven't reviewed anything that's been too overly dark. I think the darkest reviews we've ever had were from there's a coffee roaster in Colorado where I visited one of their coffee shops, and then we've reviewed some stuff from Ruby. But outside of that, that's about as dark as it gets. And those are mostly, I would say, on the really medium side of things, but not really a whole lot of dark roasted coffees. I really don't even know where to start with something like this. So here we have Eclipse. So burnt sugar, smoked vanilla bean. I figured a coffee roaster like Onyx, a lot of these coffee roasters are going to have slightly more processed offerings for people that like more traditional coffees. And has anybody recently looked at Onyx's website? I really don't like the direction that they've gone with their website. It is so clunky now. It seems like every single time they've made changes to their website, it's become a little bit more tricky and kind of frustrating to navigate. There's just so much on this page, and they've used so much. I don't know. There's too much on this page, so I don't really like looking at their website as much as it used to be. All right. Howie says Fritz. Oh, you're absolutely right, Howie. Um, 8 ounce has it. Fritz has been interestingly an easy coffee roaster to get our hands on. A lot of places have been offering Fritz, and let's see. I've actually been to one of Fritz's coffee shops in Seoul, and it would be. I think we have a couple of reviews on the channel. Who's been offering Fritz? I think that Revolver offers quite a few Fritz. Let's see what sort of coffees that they do have. It would be great to like they're a good option for darker profiled coffee roasters because they do have some yeah, higher end specialty coffees in that darker profile. Citra Natural. Let's see here. A lot of naturals currently. Let's see to make things really easy. You said 8 ounce has them, but we'll take a look at Revolver. We'll see what Revolver currently has. Let's see. So we have a bunch of Doc. Doc would be a coffee roaster. I think maybe I should take a quick look at Doc too, because I already know that they're going to have plenty of candied flavor notes. So we have Monogram, Prodigal, a lot of Prodigal, some Proud Mary, Rogue Wave, Subtext. So no Fritz currently. They do have the HMO right there. But yeah, Fritz would definitely be a good option. We'll take a look at the 8 ounce coffees as well. And Fritz. I feel like I saw some feedback on this coffee too, where it was very, very developed, which might be interesting. What do we have here? Anaerobic natural, a lot of more processed coffees. Let's see here, watermelon passion. I don't know. I'm gonna place a poll at some point to see if people do want us to review I shouldn't say natural, dark profiled coffees. Because I'm sure that there's a market for people that really want those darker profiled coffees, as we haven't really done a good job of trying out those. And Fritz would be a really good option if we were to go there. I'm not entirely sure whether or not they list their coffees in terms of lightness, because even they do. Well, this is actually on 8 ounces website, but I do wonder if Fritz lists their own coffees as being either lighter or darker, because if not, then you could justify all of those being a little bit more on the darker side of things. Right. Let's see what we have. So Alan says he bought all four of H&S's chocolate offerings. I actually saw that, and I thought it was an interesting pick given how many amazing coffees H&S has. I recently saw that they're going to be releasing some other Geshas too. And we've been reviewing so much H&S recently that I kind of wanted to steer clear from reviewing their coffees. The thing is, they've just been doing so unbelievably well that it's something that I kind of want to keep revisiting. They're releasing El Burro, I believe, and I'm looking forward to that one a lot. Let's see here. Alan says Onyx's website makes me feel like they want you to buy anything. I don't really understand it. Onyx had such a good thing going for a very long time, and it just seems like every change that they make is a little bit much. That's not to criticize them. It seems like they continue to grow. I mean, they have a collaboration with Manhattan that's going right now, and they have an entire European-based business. So it seems like they're continuing to grow and expand. So that's good for them. Just for me, it's been really surprising to see how good and how easy it was to kind of work with them, to the point where now it just seems like everything is a little bit more extra than I would particularly like. Their website is just so convoluted. Let's see here. Derek says, I suggest it because of Moonwake's Creativa Coffee District Catura Dark, which is an oil sheen. Yeah, I was wondering if Moonwake would have anything, because I know that Moonwake also ranges the spectrum too for coffees. Let's see what we have. They still do have the Pepe Mejorado. I originally wanted to purchase this coffee when it came out. I just resisted. We haven't reviewed too many of Pepe's Mejorados this year yet. So this is the one, and it's a Panamanian coffee. I assume that this is probably going to be some sort of mixed. It's just a Caturra, and it's pretty processed too. Yeah, for dark profiled coffees, this would justify purchasing from Moonwake as well. I wonder what we would add on to that. So salted caramel, not really. That could be justified as a candied note. Do they have anything that we could also justify as a candy note here? Mulberry, white peach, white florals. Has anybody tried this one? I'm yet to hear any feedback on it, because I imagine it's probably pretty positive. Moonwake's been doing pretty well with their coffees. Obviously, Pepe is my favorite producer, and this coffee specifically has been really nice the last couple of years. So I'd be curious to hear people's feedback on that one. But that is a pretty interesting coffee as far as slightly more developed ones go. Was thinking there might be more out there. And that's what I'm wondering too. I just don't have enough familiarity or haven't really looked through darker profiled coffees. Usually, when we are even reviewing something that's on the more darker side of things, like a lot of those Korean coffees, there have been pretty mixed reviews. And I don't think a lot of people really enjoy those coffees either. All right, let's see what else we have. So, Howie suggests Ando too. So, I don't actually know. Does Ando ship yet? And I know a lot of Ando's coffees sell out pretty quickly too. I know Ando is very active in Brewing's Discord as well, so they do an online store. This is only I've been oblivious to the fact that it looks like they actually do ship outside of just the area. They have some of Deborah Bourbon left. I would have imagined that that might have sold out pretty quickly. And yeah, they do have some Fritz coffee. It's kind of interesting. I need to start purchasing more from Ando here in the future because Ando seems like such a great coffee shop. I've heard nothing but positive experiences about them. So this is a coffee roaster or a coffee shop that we'll keep in consideration for future purchases, especially given that they are offering some slightly more difficult to obtain coffee roasters like Fritz, and it looks like we also have Tim Wendelboe. So yeah, I'll definitely keep an eye on them and see what they have. Oh, they have some Luna too. Interesting. And they have the Fritz pins. Do they actually ship outside? Because I'm looking at this like, can you actually order a brownie? Or is this just on their website? All right, let's see here. So Derek also says Kumquat, and I haven't looked at Kumquat's website recently. I haven't seen too many new things from them yet. I think that they've been mostly rotating through a lot of the same coffee roasters that they do have. I think I've seen Savage on here before as well. So that was yeah, see Savage Coffee. That's the first time I saw Savage's coffees was when looking through their website. I would probably buy it direct if I was purchasing from Savage though, mostly because it looks like if you spend over $100, same thing here, but if you spend over $100 on Savage's website, then it's free shipping on those, and it's pretty easy to spend over $100 when it comes to Savage's coffees. All right, let's see here. Homeground, fellow products, leaves, Macabre. Am I missing it? Moving. It looks like they're not alphabetically sorted. We have Momo's, and Ceremony Fritz. Okay. I know I've seen some darker coffees. They're currently out of stock of most of what they do have. Looks like they do have that old dog, which is listed as their own dark. So yeah, it has been a bit since we've reviewed Fritz. Fritz would be a good coffee roaster to get back to, mostly because we should be doing our Asian coffee roaster tier list at some point, and I have a pretty good idea of where I want to place them. But I think we only have, is it one review of them currently up? So, and second opportunity to review them would be really nice. All right, let's see what other comments we have. Let's see here. The old dog was really good for a dark. It's a blend though. That one really needs milk though. And I can't remember the last time I've actually drank a coffee with milk that wasn't some sort of specialty espresso drink, but it would be again, it would be an interesting review to review something that's a little bit more on the darker side of things. Alan says the Moonwake Dark Panama is oily AF. And I imagine it would be. God, there was one coffee roaster that we were reviewing that was just super oily. I think I remember when I picked up I'm just gonna say this, I'm not gonna go into detail what it was. We ordered the coffee from a coffee roaster one time, and they accidentally sent me decaf, and when I picked it up, I remember grabbing the beans, and I'm like, "These are oily." I think that's the last time I can remember having a coffee that was super oily. Let's see here. Howie says he has it resting, and Alan also has it resting, so, Howie also I've ordered to New York from Ando, so yeah, definitely going to try to purchase coffees from Ando in the future because, again, they seem to have really positive feedback as of this moment. Mohammed says, I've enjoyed a Guatemalan washed peaberry Gesha from Cockle Love Coffee Roasters last month. I'm going to look at this coffee roaster. Let's take a look. That sounds like a very interesting coffee. Oh, they're Taiwanese. I need to harass Airworks now and be like, hey, can you find a way to get them and bring them here because I know he's been working. I can't remember whether or not he's mentioned working with them to me. But yeah, so far already some. interesting coffees on their website. That in itself is a very interesting sounding coffee. Let me read that one more time. Guatemalan washed peaberry gesha. Yeah, that's very interesting. There are some of these Asian coffee roasters that just have such interesting coffees that it's frustrating not being able to find a lot of these in the United States or Canada or even Europe. A lot of these coffees you just can't find. I'm thinking most specifically West and Gopi. A lot of the coffees that we've reviewed from West and Gopi are coffees that I've not seen from other coffee roasters, especially in the United States. So I wish we had some of the green offerings that a lot of these coffee roasters have. I'm going to ask Airworks if he's heard anything about this coffee roaster. I need to start getting down a pen and paper to write down some of the notes that I'm taking away from these. But this in itself is pretty interesting. I think I have seen some of their coffees on the coffee review website. I don't look at that website too often, but yeah, it seems that they're pretty heavily featured here on this as well. Wonder if there's a way to sort through because I want to see if they have that coffee specifically, that Guatemalan one. I I'm guessing that they don't, given that they don't have the guad. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it doesn't look like they still have it. Their website also has a lot of information on it. All right, let's go back to chat because I've been kind of looking at that website pretty heavily. And there we go. Okay, so let's hear how he says the Moonwake needs milk, not old dog. Oh, yeah, I kind of figured that much as well. I think both probably actually need a little bit of milk too, to be honest. Let's see here. John says Savage Roast is a little bit more developed than others that offer their beans. It works okay though. That's kind of tricky, especially given the cost of their coffees, but it would be it would definitely be worth trying them out. Once again, it's always really good. I really want to get some Instinto coffees from Pepe. So that's another thing I should really write down and ask Pepe if we could purchase and have some of those coffees shipped because I really liked the samples that he gave, but once again, we can't review samples that are given to us because, again, I don't want any sort of conflict of interest in that. So I do want to reach out to him and see if they're shipping to the United States yet. I think he said to me one time something along the lines of anything is possible, so it could happen in the future. It would be a really good coffee roaster to review once again because of it's coming from Origin, and that's the same thing with Savage because if it's Savage's coffees and they're the ones that are sending it, then it would be definitely worth trying out. And Speed Racy says, "What website is that?" So the name of the coffee roaster is Kakalove. So it's Kakalove, and that's currently what I'm looking at. Their website, it's got so much information. I will probably go back at some point in the future and navigate through their website and see if there's anything from them that really catches my interest. But what I'm more likely going to do is I'm more likely going to reach out to Jacob at Airworks and see if he's possibly going to be bringing them in or if he's heard anything about them. Because Jacob's been doing a phenomenal job of sourcing a lot of Asian coffee roasters, and it would make it easy not just for myself, but for a lot of people to be able to try out this coffee roaster too. Right, Speed Racy says, in your opinion, what's the best Pepe Jijon Tioxy seems to get the most hype? Do you think it lives up to it? So, without a doubt, there's no question in my mind that the best Pepe has been the very original Tioxy run that Manhattan released a couple of years ago. That coffee might still be my favorite coffee that we have ever reviewed on this channel. And a lot of people really struggled with it when it first came out. But if you were able to get that coffee at its very best, that coffee is once again maybe the best coffee that we have ever reviewed up to this point. So, the Tioxy has the highest ceiling, and it is, in my opinion, by far the best coffee. There have been some other really nice ones that we've had. His regular Macchiato is really good, but I still think it probably has to be the Tioxy. That being said, the Gesha that Colfea Circular released with Pepe at that same time that Manhattan released the Tioxy was also extremely impressive. So I know his Gesha has a very high ceiling too. And I know he's been hyping and discussing a lot of the Panamanian Gesha varietal that he's been growing as well. Whenever that is released, and when it's released by a coffee roaster that's very good at working with his coffees, then I imagine that that might be on par with the Tioxy. But as far as it goes for me, I think that the Tioxy is still the best. It's gotten a little bit more pricey recently, but that being said, it's always been a phenomenal coffee. All right, let's go ahead and move on. What else do we have next? So, let's see here. Fed him Mayati says airflow roasted. And I feel like the vast majority of coffees that we looked at so far are airflow roasted. I can't quite recall what Brandywine uses as their coffee roasting machine. And it's been so long since I've actually visited Brandywine that I'm not entirely sure. Does anybody actually know what their roasting machine is? It's probably on their Instagram at some point. I don't know if they've shifted or if they made any changes or and it looks like they're mostly branding their artwork. Brandywine has really nice artwork. I've always liked Brandywine's artwork, and as far as the artwork for any coffee roaster goes, Hydrangeas is really nice, but it's been really fun for so many years seeing a lot of the artwork that they have released. I really have no idea what Brandywine uses as their roasting machine. Unless they've changed, I imagine since they've been around for so long, it's probably something a little older, probably something like a Probat San Franciscan, probably some sort of drum roaster. And if I remember from the way that their coffee's tasted, I imagine it's a drum roaster, but I really don't have the slightest idea of what they're using as their roasting machine. I don't even know where you'd find that information unless you went out there and reached out to them. All right, let's see here. Would love for you to describe your resting process. I've been struggling with figuring out when to open bags, when they peak. Are there certain rules you follow on origin? So I can go through that real quick. And the way that I go about the resting process is, unless I know better about a coffee roaster, then I will, for the most part, always do 2 weeks. So unless I know a coffee roaster is extremely light or a coffee roaster suggests waiting longer, I will always start my coffee at either day 14 or day 15, and the entire reason for that is because Brian said it. This has always been the way that I've done this. I like to catch the coffee as it's improving. So I like to see what the coffee is right from the start. And then I really like to see the way that the coffee does improve. I know a lot of people prefer to drink their coffee within its best window. So then that way, every single cup you're having of that coffee is really good. But I always start, for the most part, every single one of these coffee roasters at that 14-day period. As far as kind of shelving the coffee goes as well, I I'll pull it up. I think I pull this up every so often. It's what Colfea Circular has listed on their website. I found this resource to be very helpful in a lot of things that we do with our coffee in general. Their guide specifically discusses resting coffee and kind of storage coffee. So let's see here. And yeah, so the resting time, they specifically state they have an entire spectrum on their coffees right here that I always like to highlight. This isn't true for every single coffee roaster, but this is the way that they discuss their coffee, and I've seen it pretty consistent for a lot of other coffee roasters. It's not quite ready from the day 0 to day 14 mark, but then from this point going forward, you just kind of see increased sweetness, increased balance, and once again, lighter profiled coffees, they do seem to improve even at this point going forward, and that's when you're starting to get a lot more of these profiles to them. But as far as the storage goes, I really liked this because I like to keep the coffees basically in a dry, cool spot. So and I, for the most part, keep them in the bags. A lot of people discuss freezing the coffees, and I only freeze coffees that we're done with or that we've finished at its very best because I still wanna see the way that the coffee changes. The reason we're reviewing them the way that we are is for how the coffee's changing. I would probably treat all of these coffees different if I wasn't reviewing them. If I was just going through these bags, I would probably try to hold off until they're at their best window and then just drink the coffee at its very best. Usually, that's going to be around that, I wanna say, 4-week mark for the majority of coffee roasters, but even then, you're probably still experiencing a lot of these coffee roasters 6, 7 weeks. One of the coffees we're working on, I feel like, is best at that 6, 7-week mark. A lot of the H&S coffees were at its best around that 7-week mark. Alright, let's see here, and do I go based off of origin? No, it's mostly based off of roast profile, truth be told, and that's usually the way I go about it. All right. Paul the Playful Panda says, watching from say and sipping on the Brian Kwan X Pepe collab right now. Okay, so I did post this on Brian's Discord. It is actually true. I actually did find a small rock inside my bag of Pepe, and it is a little unfortunate. I'm very grateful that I was able to find that. I do usually look at my beans. I feel like a lot of people do. I usually don't pour out the coffee beans themselves. I usually go in and grab the coffee so then that way I can kind of sort through it. And that's exactly what I did. And I happened to catch the stone at the very top, which is very unfortunate. Mistakes happen. I've seen a lot of other coffee roasters have the same issue as well, so it's not necessarily a safe thing, but it was just a little scary considering that could have destroyed the burrs in the grinder, but it's unfortunate. Hopefully, you're enjoying that Brian Pepe collab. We are still working on it. I think we have maybe one more day of notes to take a tasting wheel, and then we will hopefully be recording the video shortly after that. Speed Racy says, "How is Paul?" Oh, I'm assuming you're speaking with Paul. Let's see. Paul says, "Good, but probably the worst Pepe coffee I've had so far." That is a little harsh. I think there have definitely been some Pepe coffees that have been out there. I've had some discussions with people about this Brian Pepe collab, and they said that it's a little different. It's a little out there, and I can definitely see that. I said that I'm not the biggest fan of Sidras, and you'll see that for anybody that watches tomorrow's videos. It's kind of true as far as the Sidra coffees goes. They're not necessarily my favorite, but I think that there's some nice things to it. Paul says that it's a little heavy on the herbals, and I could absolutely see that. Let's see here. Sergio says, "Good boy Bob Coffee has an interesting Hawaiian geisha." That is interesting because of one of the other suggestions that we've had. Let's see here. Good boy Bob Coffee Roasters. I've never heard of this coffee roaster before. Culver City. I've been in Culver City once. It was actually I enjoyed it. All right. They have quite a few geishas actually. Let's see here. I'm assuming is this a what is this? Medium profiled. It says California geisha. Surely this isn't actually grown in California. I'm pretty sure this is the one you're referencing. That is a little pricey for a Hawaiian. I guess Hawaiian coffees in general tend to be pretty expensive. They have this one listed as a light. We have never reviewed any Hawaiian coffee, so this would be interesting. I would really like them to have some sort of candy note so we can add it to our candied theme, but this is a very interesting coffee. All right, I appreciate the suggestion. Let's see here. So I think wow, we're getting pretty close to the hour, but let's move on. And it's actually fitting that the next comment we had was from McStutter, and they said non-traditional geisha, so no Panama or Colombian geishas. And I was wondering when I saw that comment initially if we could justify Ecuadorian geishas. I'm not sure that we're going to go with the theme this month, though I really like this theme actually, if I'm being completely honest, because Honduran geishas that would justify the one from Tim Wendelboe. What else do we have? This Hawaiian geisha is pretty interesting in itself. If we could count Ecuadorian geishas, I think that West and Gopi right now has a Peruvian geisha, and I think that that's been a little bit more common. We've seen a lot of coffee roasters offering Peruvian geishas recently. So let's take a look at that one. I think it's at the very bottom. Yeah, this one right here. It would justify another purchase from Wes and Gopi, and while it hasn't been our most popular coffee roaster as far as viewership goes, I've really been impressed by a lot of the coffees, even if the Esmeralda wasn't necessarily my favorite. So doing this theme is something that I would very much like to explore. I could potentially throw out the idea of doing that in the future to a lot of people and see what they feel about that. And for anybody that's not looked at Wes and Gopi's website, I have to say their shipping is really, I think it's free if you get above a certain amount. The coffees are actually very cheap when you do the conversion, and they have some very, very interesting coffees. Even now, we reviewed this one. It was a very nice coffee. They have some very interesting Ethiopian coffees that convinced a lot of people to purchase from them. The profile is very light. I do like to kind of advertise this coffee roaster because of just how much I've been impressed with them recently. So, for anybody that's looking for something interesting that's interestingly relatively cheap, then they're a coffee roaster that I definitely suggest. All right, so that's a really good suggestion, McStutter. H&S Coffee Roasters says spooky coffee, and that's why this candy theme once again seems to be a really good idea. It is really good for Halloween, but I'm not entirely sure what other coffee roasters other than Brandywine we could justify as being spooky. But unless we want to go with something really scary, like really out there processed coffee, is something like H&S's own gochujang coffee, which is very interesting in itself. So that is an option. Right. Gamdi 1979 says Central American coffee, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. Yes. So I don't know if we've had any of those coffees that are currently on the ones that we've looked at as of this moment, but that would be really good. We were originally doing our coffee of the month theme to be a specific origin, so I would like to maybe revisit that. A lot of these origins we still haven't done, I think, an entire theme of. So maybe I have this wrong. El Salvador and Nicaragua, I don't think that we've done an entire month's theme on, but that is something that I would hopefully like to do as well. Let's see here. Derek says, yeah, they grow Gesha in California. It can be very good. That is very interesting in itself. I think, once again, if we're doing that theme of non traditional Geshas, there's nothing more non traditional than Californian Gesha. That's the first time I've ever seen it. Obviously, I feel like a lot of people are thinking about the Kenyan Gesha that came out from Say recently, and I'm very much looking forward to discussing that coffee. I haven't heard a lot of feedback from people since they first tried the coffee, but I think it's an interesting coffee to say the least. John says Hawaii might be a good origin for a dark roast theme. That's a very good point, actually. That could kind of go well in a collaboration. It seems like the most popular theme this month has been this Halloween theme because it is October, but I'm not discounting in the future not just the non-traditional geshas, but the Hawaiian offerings as potential things. Sergio says Proud Mary has some different types of gesha. See, it works really well. I'm getting a lot of suggestions for these non-traditional geshas. So Proud Mary looks like Mira has a Tanzanian gesha. So we'll take a very quick look at both of those. I think we'd come up with three candied coffees as of this moment for our potential theme, but as of that, I don't think we've moved on to a fourth coffee suggestion yet. I have something from Benjamin Pass. So let's see here. A Honduran gesha would be nice, especially from Benjamin himself. If we can justify a candied note on this one, then we can justify it in our theme. And not this time around. I would really like to swing by Portland sometime here in the near future and try one of Proud Mary's offerings. For anybody that's never been to one of Proud Mary's shops, they have the most impressive list of deluxe pour over offerings I've seen from any coffee shop. So I would really like to go back and try one of their other coffees. It's been a bit. And then Michael said, yeah, Mira has a Tanzanian gesha. I honestly have heard very little about Mira in a while. I had originally heard positive things about them, but once again, it has been a bit since I've heard people give feedback on their coffees. Yeah, this right here, I've had really positive experiences with Tanzanian geshas. I'm mostly thinking of those Akasi Hills coffees. And not speaking in terms of the coffee of the month theme, I think I'm just kind of interested in this coffee in general. This is unique and obscure enough to the point where it's something that I would personally want to review myself. Okay. Yeah, very curious about this coffee. All right, let's see here. D4X says, I was thinking about picking up Alo coffees from Wes. Any other bangers, though? I'm going to go look real quick. Wes and Gopi. I'm hoping that they still have any of the coffees that I was really impressed with. Let's see here. As far as washed goes, I had really positive experiences with this one. So the Benchmaji Gesha Lucy Station. This one, our review of it is coming out this upcoming Saturday. So next Saturday we'll have the review of this coffee. I really like this coffee. So this is one that I would definitely suggest. Very clean, great intensity for a wash processed Ethiopian coffee. It's unfortunate I didn't get a chance to try this one. I have a lot of optimism that this one will be very good. Uh, Birhanu Dito. This is the other one that we are also reviewing. This one was also very, very good. And they do have both of the Ethiopian coffees that we purchased that were very nice. I think that their natural processed coffees are some of the best that I've had from any coffee roaster recently. So if you're looking at those natural processed Ethiopian coffees, I definitely suggest some of them. They were very nice from what I had had. All right, let's see here. Speed Racy, do you have your water recipe posted anywhere? Does it change based off the coffee you are brewing? So we should have it in the link of this video itself. I think we have a FAQs. Let me double check. Yeah, we do have a Google Doc of our FAQs. So that kind of goes over it briefly. It's not overly detailed, mostly because I don't have the exact measurements of the coffee or the water. That being said, it doesn't change. And the reason it doesn't change is because I've had such good success with this water specifically for most of the coffee roasters that we use. And I say that usually with more developed coffees, our water is too soft to work well with them. So I always give them that kind of grace. I think tinkering with water would really be kinda tricky for the reviews because at least we have a consistent baseline for what to expect with our water, and that way the water shouldn't impact the reviews too much in terms of a negative or a positive way, but that being said, I do know for certain coffees, especially more processed coffees, we do need to go with something that has a little bit more minerality to it. Nathan says, "I have that Pas Gesha resting. Melissa has the Acacia, or Memley has the Acacia Hills Gesha, and I also suggest a Lucy Station." Yes, that Lucy Station is a very, very nice coffee. I do remember Memley has had the Acacia Hills Gesha for quite a while now. I considered purchasing it originally after we had purchased the one from Nomad because it would have been great to kind of compare them alongside each other. They have the Pacamara, they have the Churroso. Is it still here? Yeah, there we go. It sounds very nice, and I've had really positive experiences with this Acacia Hills Gesha. All right, let's see here. Derek says the California harvest just happened though, so no new coffee crop won't be ready for another few months. And Timothy says evening, so good evening, Timothy. And in theory, we have 4 minutes, but I think we've actually only found, is it four coffees so far that we can actually use for our, or correction, three coffees that we can use for our coffee of the month theme. GFAB says the quest for blueberry. And yeah, I think, we're going with a quest for blueberry that has to start in West and Gopi. For anybody that had the Ngise Gamera, that was just the epitome of a blueberry bomb. One of the most impressive blueberry bombs I've had in a very long time, and I really regret not picking that one up from Airworks because it is still my favorite natural processed Ethiopian coffee I've tried in the last couple of years. And I would definitely love to do a blueberry theme as well. If I could find, like, a candied blueberry, that would definitely justify that. We are in the middle of Ethiopian season too, so that's why it would be really nice to find some coffees with that blueberry note on there. We have a couple more comments. So Dun Bevy says green grape flavor note coffees. And that's another thing where I'm not entirely sure where to start with on that because I'm not sure which coffees or coffee roasters have green grape notes. That does go along the theme once again of that kind of berry idea. And if I could find, again, a candied note to that, that would be ideal to kind of throw in our coffee of the month theme. We got a lot of very interesting themes and ideas for the coffee of the month. I think since the Halloween theme was the most common theme, then that's the main reason we're going with it. It's just been maybe a little bit more tricky since I haven't been able to find as many candied note coffees as I would like. Last one we had was from Magnuson, and they suggested Father's Key Washed Kenyan, which is kind of interesting. They said to compare it alongside of the Min-Max Key as well. And it's interesting because we actually reviewed the Father's Key earlier this year. So we have that review up already. So I would check that out if you're curious. We're definitely going to be comparing that alongside of the one from Min-Max when we do a Min-Max review. So that is all of the comments that we've had as far as our Instagram goes. And let's see if we have any comments here as well. Agree on the water approach. I'm mixing minerals to get 20 to 60 ppm. So that's pretty close to what I'm working with right now. Once again, it's under 50. It's usually around the 20 to 30 mark. It works exceptionally well for Coffea circularis coffees, and I feel like that's why we usually get such wonderful results with Coffea circularis coffees. John says, I'm drinking the Weston Gopi Lucy Station. Nice, very floral. It is an extremely floral coffee, and at its best, I was getting some really nice fruit components to it as well. Let's see here. Timothy says, having too many things to tinker well. And that's also been the tricky thing is I have a really good baseline for what I should expect with the coffees, which is why we start everything in a standard approach with the exact same recipe. And then I always have a pretty good idea of where to adjust it from there based off of that initial results. And water's one of the last things I want to mess with, mostly because I think that that's probably going to cause the biggest margin of error. Will there be a pumpkin co-ferment for Halloween? I would be more than willing and happy to add any sort of coffee that might have a pumpkin flavor notes to it to the coffee of the month theme. All right, so we have 3 coffees. Let me see if I can remember what exactly those ones were. So we had the Brandywine coffee, and then what else did we have? We had the one from the Slovakian-based coffee roaster, and that's going to be 2 for right now. And we just need a. We'll go with a fourth one, and I feel like Doc's a pretty safe bet to find something that has any sort of candied note on there. Does Bots have any coffees currently right now that would be kind of candied themed? Interesting. So far yet, well, there we got our grape note, but so far yet to find anything that is overly candied as far as their coffees go. Oh, interesting. I guess no candy note. I think I might open it up to some suggestions since I don't necessarily think we found a fourth yet to see if people have any sort of candied notes for some of their coffees. And then that way we could kind of include that as well. Sergio says Ilsa's Ethiopian Kabbalah has a candy note. Let's take a look at that one. Remember last time Ilsa was featured in one of our Coffee of the Month polls? They did extremely well at the start, and then towards the end, I feel like they were up against some really heavy competition. This is the one. Natural Ethiopian. I am subscribed to their newsletter, and I don't remember looking at this one. Peach candy. Well, there you go. That could be our fourth one. And I know Ilsa's popular with a lot of people, so that could definitely be our fourth one. Chem latte. Check out black and white. Came late. Check out black and white. Yeah, absolutely. Let me check out black and white coffee. I completely forgot about them, and they might have something along those lines as well. Okay. I think it's been even longer since I've had black and whites coffees. Let's see here. Yeah, this one right here literally has a passion fruit candy note on there. Yeah, that's perfect. I think I can include both of those. I think we have our full coffees then. Actually, you know what? I think we have to go with this Edwin Norino, right? I would love to throw an Edwin Norino coffee into a coffee of the month poll. Yeah, that's going to be it. That's a Sebastian Ramirez. Edwin Norino. Okay. So we have the Ilsa coffee, we have the Edwin Norena, we have the Brandywine coffee, and then we have the coffee from the Slovakian coffee roaster. So that should actually be our four. So we have quite a few comments. I'm going to stick around for a little bit of those and see. Let's see here. Timothy says Coffee Circular has an Altieri Gesha described as, how do you say that? Bonvenerier? Professor Circular has so many coffees that I really want right now, but I've resisted the urge to purchase from them. Once again, we've reviewed so many of their coffees. I wonder how that would perform because I'm imagining a lot of people would probably look at the price of that coffee and be like, that's a little bit above what we could afford for a coffee of the month. I don't think we've had too expensive of a coffee for the coffee of the month as of this moment yet, but this one, I kind of want to take a look at it. Let's see here. Altieri Gesha. Do you know which of the Altieri Geshas it is? Because they have so many coffees on their website. I'm gonna take a quick look at some of the other comments while I see if I can figure that out. I've been neglecting the coffee that we brewed for this video. It's definitely cold now, but given the price point of this one, once again, it's the Misty Mountain from One Half. Actually, it's improved a lot since it's cooled down, but given the price point of this coffee, I feel like it might be difficult to justify purchasing like that. Golfei Circular does have Misty Mountain, and I would have loved to have purchased it from them or at least gotten a sample from them. I checked Bots is all sold out. I kind of figured Bots sells out like crazy these days, and it's funny because the first time I ever went to visit Bots' website, all of the coffees that they had were available. So I know that it's changed recently. Timothy says ordered it Friday. I see. And Michael says Perk has an El Mirador with a watermelon candy and coconut sound, which sounds kind of yeah, that sounds very heavy. As do a lot of the other coffees that we've picked out with any sort of candy notes to them. All right, Altieri Gesha, natural anaerobic cold fermentation. All right. And I know how much people absolutely love navigating Coffea Circular's website. That's something that they could definitely make a little easier at times. As you can see here, there are a ridiculous amount of. I'm going to Google this. There we go. Sometimes it's just easier to do it that way. And notes that we do have on here. How much is this coffee, first off? Let's take a look at that. Because they cupped this at a 93. 100 grams is 34. That's not terrible. I think it could possibly be justified. Well, there you go. Where's our tasting notes on this one? There we go. Cotton candy. This is a interesting coffee. I would I think we have a 4. I might consider some other things, but it would be really nice to revisit Coffee Circular. All right, and Speed Racy says, Doc Watermelon Drops is pretty good. Have I had that coffee? They have a lot of coffees that do have watermelon notes listed on there, so it has been a little bit since I've had one of their coffees, but that is potentially I would definitely like to revisit Doc here in the near future, mostly because they always seem to have interesting stuff on their website, on their offerings. I am on my third Coffea Circular order this year. LOL. I Timothy, I don't know how many Coffea Circular orders we have. I think it's around that mark, 2 or 3. But a lot of the ones that we have purchased were obviously a bunch of coffees. For anybody that doesn't know with Coffea Circular, I think you get to 1,000 grams and there's free shipping. Their coffees, if you're going with their standard offerings, aren't actually that expensive. It's their high end offerings like the Misty Mountain that can obviously get up there in price. So why don't we just take a very quick look at their so this one right here, this Tio Conejo, I think this is even a Gesha. So like 23 euros for 250 grams of a Gesha. That's not terrible by modern coffee standards. And just that's not even a standard offering too. So something like this, the Ascori, which is also a standard offering, 25. They're really not that expensive. And you just need to purchase 4 bags of this and you get to free shipping on them as well. So that has seemed to help. Their more basic stuff is really good too. I got that one too. That's the thing, once again, about their more basic stuff is, the reason I rate them so highly is because their basic stuff, their standard offerings have been some of the best standard offerings I've had from any coffee roaster. Couple that with the fact that they've had some extremely high-end coffees like Black Pearl, that's been one of my favorite coffees this year easily, so they do it on both ends. Their standard offerings and their higher end offerings really do both seem to hit the mark. And then the Natural Tio Conejo, maybe my favorite coffee of the year. Okay, wow, that's really interesting, and I think well, if we were gonna do that Gesha theme, then we were going to skip Colombian coffees in general, but it would have been really nice to kind of add that one to the, list of offerings that we did have. I think we do have our 4 coffees, though. I think we'll go through it one more time. We have the Brandywine, we have the Slovakian coffee roaster, we have the Ilsa coffee, and then we had more recently that, which one was it? I should take a look at that Perk coffee real quick though, and the black and white coffee, the Edwin Noreña. Yeah, we'll take a quick look at the Perk coffee, and then I will probably head out. We've run a little over on time today. I was planning on being done at 11, but we got so many interesting suggestions that we just ended up going a little longer. Let's see here. Which one was that Perk coffee? The El Mirador. I'm gonna take a quick look at this. We have a thermal shock coffee. Thermal shock Catura. Pineapple and hibiscus. Okay, let's take a look at that in Mirador though. Watermelon candy and coconut. What's the process? Natural Colombian. All right. I don't think I've ever really enjoyed too many natural processed Colombian coffees, but yeah, that would justify the candy note. Okay. I am going to leave the stream with that. We have our 4 coffees. I will be releasing the coffee of the month poll tomorrow, so definitely stay tuned for that. If there is anything that anybody finds between now and then that might be interesting as well, I would love to hear that because that might switch something out for those. I feel like a couple of those are absolute locks to make it into the coffee of the month poll. That's Slovakian coffee roaster and Brandywine. Brandywine has to be featured in a Halloween coffee of the month poll. But that is going to be it for right now. Thank you everybody that contributed. This was extremely helpful. Once again, it's always extremely helpful and productive to do these because you guys do a amazing job of helping me find these coffees. So thank you, and yeah, I guess I'll talk to you guys soon.